Hello everyone, and welcome to the 9834th video. I think it's the 834th video, and today is Mumbleberry, the 2400th of November, I think. So I hope you're doing very well. We are still in the middle of various lockdowns. Half the planet is currently under lockdown, and we are doing these live videos here just to share some time talking about things that we find of mutual interest, I hope, and mutual passion. In terms of what we're interested in talking about at the moment. And for me, that's tarot and oracle decks and Kabbalah and the initiation system and Western esotericism, alchemy, magic, ritual, divination in general, the I Ching, and anything else that we might like to talk about. So thank you for giving me questions in the Facebook group. That's been very helpful. We will get round to talking about some of the things that people have asked about as we go along, I'm sure. So today we're going to talk about storytelling and how that applies in tarot. I'm going to show you a simple one-card method, a sort of one-card method, although it's a little bit more than that, of course. And we'll be reading towards the back of Invisible Cities by Italo, Calvino as well. So storytelling then, and we are sort of adding things as we go along to our list. Yesterday we were looking, I think, at VACOG and the modalities within that from NLP work, and learning how to really step into a card and amplify it. Now, one of the things, also, I just wanted to show the two cards that I got this morning for my personal contemplation with our DS, the Philosopher's Stone deck, Oracle deck, and this is my favorite card. It hasn't come up in all of the two card draws that I've been doing for myself over the last couple of weeks, but it came up today, and it's one of my favorite cards because the design is so beautiful. I love the fact that the question mark, when exclamation mark actually on the wall itself. You need the wall, you need the light, and you need the question. And this is the perfect summation for me of the whole universe, in effect. I think the universe is an act of inquiry, and that is why questions are so important, because they lead us to experience the universe through that act of inquiry. In effect, to me, the whole universe is its own inquiry. It's asking what is possible, what can happen, and it turns out that everything can happen, and we are part of that. So I love this card and the design on it. The other important thing about this is that, to me, it also symbolizes a lot of the brief therapy approaches that I take and other people take, particularly from an Ericksonian point of view, where the answer is always in the question, the resource is always in the challenge, the way out is always in the obstacle. It's a very cognate sort of image for all of those sorts of principles. So, excuse me, I was very glad to have it today, although it was bound up with the second card that I drew today, which is existence, which does feel a little bit like that today, of this sort of effort of banging, either banging the stone down or trying to lift it up, bending one's back into the sheer weight of existence itself. And of course, existence in itself does imply effort. And so the solution is in existence, and existence is its own solution, was the reading that I had to contemplate today. But it's this card as well that is very important to what we're going to cover today with our storytelling. Because as we saw yesterday, when we made that flip between inner and outer, associated and disassociated, then we have a possibility to do that in a tarot reading as well, and it's a very powerful way of switching things. So I was just going to say, I got slightly lost there because I was looking at saying hello to everyone: Tony and Evelyn and Steph, Natalie, Diana, and Debbie, Denny, Shaheen as well. Hello, Derek. Hello, Derek's there. And Lisa and everyone else. So with storytelling, it allows us to switch you and I into different perspectives. And that's a very powerful tool, So some people are saying that the sound is dropping out. I hope that's not for everyone. The internet in my present location has been a little bit hit and miss over the last couple of weeks, but usually it's not too bad in the recording. Now, so storytelling is very useful because if you have a range of stories, you can map them to the client very easily. And of course, with our tarot deck, we have a whole range of stories. So it's good to hear some people have okay sound. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, or was it a couple of months ago, a year ago? I've lost track of time entirely. We were talking about entering into the card, the Page of Cups, and we took a deep breath in and we stepped into the card, and first of all, we stepped into the card and then we stepped into the figure as well. And that's a good case of association and disassociation. Association and disassociation has been proven very useful as part of the whole tool set of dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. There's been a little bit of research into that with NLP techniques, and it does turn out that whole being forced into a present association with an event that is no longer happening is something that you can break that association, and that really does weaken the impact of the representation itself, allowing you to use other interventions to deal with it, to integrate it, to come up with coping strategies for it. So we can do that with tarot by talking about the cards as if they're the client. So we can say, let's say, for example, if we take a very different card to any that we've been using, let's have a look. Let's go for this one. So if we have the Six of Swords, we can say, so it's a little bit like your... Okay, so I know it sounds a very easy thing to say, but think about what we're saying when we say it's a little bit like you're rowing a boat or punting a boat across water. Now, they're not doing that, and it may not be a good representation of their state. Because they are not actually physically rowing a boat, but it maps to their state if we have our divination and our interpretation correct. When we say something like, so it's as if you're rowing a boat and you can't see quite where you're going, and we're saying you can't see where you're going, but then we can switch it and we can say, now, in the card, we can see that he's giving a lot of effort to getting his cargo across safely. And it wouldn't be very good for him to suddenly uproot all of these swords so he could see where he's going, because you know you know. So instead of him, we now switch to you know what might happen if we take all of these swords out while the boat's already going. He might be able to see where he's going, but the boat might sink. So it's probably very important for him to really have a good idea of trusting this process. Because when you're rowing like that, it may be that you have a really good idea already of where you're going and you don't need to see, just like him. And so we swap that you, I, him, them, and we can swap that around as we talk about the cards. And that's a very powerful way of utilizing our tarot and storytelling. And hello to Sarah who's joined us. What Erickson used to do was tell stories very famously under the My Friend John sentence structure. So basically, he would say in his very slow, drawly voice, my friend John was skeptical about hypnosis until he realized that he could just begin to relax. And he didn't know that hypnosis was happening to him all of the time. And in fact, he found that it was very easy for him to be able to listen to someone talking and wonder whether he was being hypnotized or not. And then Erickson would then conduct an induction, a hypnotic induction, right there and then through the story. And his friend John had every single problem on the planet, every single problem. His friend John must have been one of the best clients on the planet because he had everything. Just turned out that he had everything that each of Erickson's clients seemed to have, because obviously John was a metaphor that allowed Erickson to weave a story with a solution and an answer into it. And that's really important as well when we're working with some of these techniques, when we're listening to the client, when we are using any of these methods with understanding whether they're visual or auditory, using the modalities, whether we know that they are away from or towards, whether we've got an idea of their self-image, their values, their way of organizing time. All of these things can be woven into a story. And for us tarot readers, that is very easy to do because we have the stories already illustrated for us on the card. So I'm going to give you a one card demonstration of that in a moment. So Shaheen's saying you looked at the punter and assumed that would be mapped to the client. Would you ever consider the client to be the person taken to the other side? Yes, of course. Absolutely. Again, these are just examples. It would absolutely depend on the situation. But here's the thing with storytelling and metaphors. The client could be the boat. The client could very easily be the boat. The client could be the swords. We could map any part of this card to the client, and sometimes it would be quite interesting to see where the client actually gravitates to in the card itself. And it does depend on the situation, the question, and the cards around it as well. Okay, so in terms of incorporating what a client may say, if I may, I would like to tell you a little story about a client. All of my stories about clients are with their permission and are anonymized. I had one client who came to me quite a few years ago, and he was this big guy, very muscular, quite elderly, and he told me that his kids had saved up for him to come for a session because he had to give up smoking under doctor's recommendation. but he could only afford one session. His kids had managed to uh, collect together enough money for one session with me, and he was interested in giving up smoking. Now, usually I always sort of weigh in at about 3 sessions for smoking cessation, unless there's any reason to continue on with it. And I said to him this, and I said, well, perhaps you can tell me a bit about your life and what you did, what you do at the moment. And he told me he worked on the railways and he was a track layer. He laid down the railway tracks and he worked with a lot of other people and he tried to give up smoking, but they all smoked as well. So they were outdoors a lot of the time. They were in each other's company and they used to smoke and talk and smoke and talk and work. And I said, well, what did you do before that? And he told me a few of his other jobs, which were heavy industry and very hard work. And I said, well, what did you do when you weren't doing that to relax? And he said, well, I used to do street fighting on street corners, and people would take bets and so on. And he really sort of livened up when he was talking about this street fighting. And I thought, bloody hell, it's he's a big guy, and this street fighter. And I said, were you any good at it? And he said, well, mate, no one ever fucking put me down. And I sort of backed up a little bit, and it was like, okay, right. So that's all very interesting. And then I said, well, okay, let's. I'm going to teach you a relaxation method, and so my usual route with smoking cessation is to teach a very particular relaxation method, which we might get onto as we do these sessions. I might be able to demonstrate this particular method for you, but I usually teach it to people because you can do it yourself. And it's very easy to actually practice on yourself before teaching it to others. And you can do it with other people and really go into a nice sort of relaxed trance-like state. And so I said, and I'm going to teach you this, and we'll see where we go from there. So we did this method and he got very relaxed. He had his eyes closed. I was relaxed as well. And I said, I started to do my usual speaky stuff, weird speak, which we've already done some examples of with linking words, with confusional techniques, with repetitions, and so on. So, and it sort of went like this. And as you relax, blah, 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 and you can see yourself. So you can see yourself. So there's a disassociation. You can see yourself on the tracks, working, deserving a break, working and relaxing with all of your friends around you. They're supporting you. You've been working all day. And as you slowly begin to really sink into your body on those tracks, knowing exactly how relaxed you are and how much you deserve a break and to be healthy for your kids who have worked very hard in order for you to be healthy as well. And you know that the cigarette companies are really taking that money off you, even though you're getting less healthy. And it's very important for them to take everything from you without you being too unhealthy that you can't afford to. And I carried on weaving this sort of language with lots of linking words. And then I said, and of course, your friends, your mates, your work colleagues, the lads on the track, they all want you to smoke, just like the cigarette company wants you to smoke. And there's only you now who doesn't want to smoke. But don't forget, no one ever fucking put you down. And I leaned forward and I balled my fist up and I tried to get the exact intonation that he'd used and did it right into his face. And I was absolutely terrified. And it was lucky he had his eyes closed as well. And that was it. That was it. And we did a sort of outduction, as it's called. So we'd done the induction into the trance-like state, delivered that piece of his story back to him in that context, and then come back out the other side. And sure enough, he went out literally with his sort of fists balled up, and there was a reason for this, because you can't smoke while you've got your fists balled up either. So he really anchored to that, because he'd made an exact statement about his own story. And this is where I'm going with this story, that if you listen to people's stories, the answer will always be in their question. It can't be anywhere else. The reason that they've got a situation or a problem is because they have raised a question about it. And they're in that situation because they are answering some question about their own life. Should I be in this relationship? Should I be in this job? Should I be doing more than I think? Should I be this sort of person who is anxious all of the time? And these questions give rise to their answer if you use incorporation and utilization. So you can always listen to somebody's story, gain some resources out of it, and then put them back in. Okay? And so the point of the story is to illustrate the power of stories. And if you have a lot of stories yourself, then you can utilize those as well. And that's why it's good to listen to stories, to tell stories, and to imagine the stories of the cards. And that's what we're going to do now. So a one card method. Again, I'm not here to do free readings. Victoria Kelly Chawton, may I have a card, please? That's not the sort of thing that we're doing in these sessions, but I would like to, if I may, use you and your perhaps question as a real world example. We might as well go with the oracular moment. So do you have an actual question that you can share with the class? Victoria, if you're still in the comments thread. Otherwise, I'm just going to do this as intended, as just a general sort of reading. Let's just give Victoria a moment if she is actually in the live class. I'm not meaning to call you out or anything, but you did ask for a card, and that's usually code for, can I have a free reading? And again, that's not a bad thing. It's not what we're doing here at the moment. But I could use that's a real example if you're still here with us. I'll just give Victoria a moment. I'll tell another story just while we wait, just in case. Otherwise, I'll do a general example. The other thing with stories is that they're very important to listen to in full, because I do work with phobias, for example. And a while ago, a lady came to me, and she had a phobia about jelly, Jello. And she had a very particular phobia about lemon jelly. So lemon jelly. And the reason it had come up, because it's always important to ask your client, whether it's NLP, hypnotherapy, or tarot, why now? Why have you now come for a reading? Why have you now come to make a change in your life? Because again, quite often the timing of the situation has a clue in it to its solution. Okay, the timing of it. So it's very useful to ask a client, and why now? Have you tried to change this before, or ask about it before, or is it just now? Is this the first time you've asked about it, whether to tarot or to your friends or to anyone else? So with the lady with the phobia, her phobia was coming up in her life. She never needed to deal with it before. It was because she had a sort of 4, 5, 6-year-old daughter. Her daughter wasn't 4, 5, and 6. She was in between that age range. And she was asked to, she was being invited to parties, like with her friends from play school and from kindergarten. So the problem was that the mother was so terrified that the party might have lemon jelly in it, that she was finding it very problematic. What she was doing was she was arriving with her daughter outside the house at the end of the path or the drive or the garden, getting her daughter to leave the car. Then she was phoning the mother who was hosting the party up to say, we've arrived. And then the woman hosting the party, or the guy hosting, or the family, would come out, pick up her daughter from the car, and then take the woman's daughter into the party, and they would do the same on the way out, because there was no way that this woman could actually go into the house where the party might be, just in case she smelt or saw jelly. And she couldn't ask her friends. She didn't explain really to her friends what the problem was, because she just couldn't risk lemon jelly being in the house and stuff. And sometimes when I mention that as a story, people wonder, well, it's a rather silly thing in a sense, quite trivial thing to have a phobia about. Usually people have phobias about dogs or heights, falling off cliffs, or fire. In fact, we're only born with about 3 natural phobias, and bonus points if you guess what phobias we're actually born with. Children, young babies, have an instinct to recoil automatically about 3 things that are built into our brains to begin with. You can put a baby in a room full of spiders. Don't do this at home, by the way, and it will try and play with them until it has a nasty experience with them, and then it learns a phobia. Every other phobia other than 3 phobias are learnt phobias, and that's a good thing, because that means that if we can find out a bit more about the situation, the phobia, then we can find out a lot about its solution, because it has to be learnt. It has to be learnt. So spiders, no. Snakes, no. A baby, again, don't do this. And I'm sure the experiment wasn't just literally putting a young baby in a room full of snakes, but the baby will play with them. Same with water. Abandonment is sort of a phobia, but that is learnt. Water, fire, no. I'll give you one of them. Is loud noises. We have an automatic recoil reflex built into us about loud noises. Oh, Dennis got it. Brilliant. Okay, so loud noises is one of them. Height is another. That is sort of born into us. And fire. Fire is another one. We did have fire. At least one person mentioned fire. Yes, Ellen did as well. Darkness, no. We have to learn our phobia, the phobic response to darkness. Being dropped is part of the heights one. Yes, definitely. If you put, again, don't do this, a baby in a room with a ledge in it and have a glass floor, so the baby doesn't know that it's not a real edge, the baby will recoil from the edge. So fire, loud noise, and heights. Every other phobia, like aeroplanes, like needles, like dentist chairs, like every other phobia, is learnt. It's a learnt phobia. We've had to have learnt it at some point. And the moral of the story is that We have learnt these for a very good reason, because when I worked with the lady with the ridiculous, silly phobia about something as innocent as lemon jelly, um, it soon came to the point where she told me what had happened to her repeatedly, of which lemon jelly was the reward when she was in her early childhood. And I learnt in that very moment that there is no such thing as a silly phobia. If any human being had have had done to them what this woman had done to her and was always rewarded by lemon jelly, you would also have a phobic response about lemon jelly. There is no such thing as a silly phobia, but more importantly for us, there is always a full story that we have to see the darkness of and shine a light on in order to find the solution out of it. Someone has put fear I've learned phobia of vomiting, and that's absolutely emetophobia is one of the things that I've dealt with several times. I didn't even know what it was to begin with, but it is a very serious and prevalent phobic response. Have some strange stories about that as well, but those stories can wait for another time, perhaps. But yeah, it is a learned phobia, and you can work with it. That is for sure. It's something that can be worked with. So back to our example, and we didn't have a question in the end, so I'm just going to do this as a general thing. We can tell stories with our decks, and I'd like you to practice this particular method, if you will. Is to have your deck as a friend, and it's very good for a new deck, but also very good for general practice and getting to grips with a deck that maybe you're not familiar with. So what you do is very simple. It's a one card method, but a repeated one card method. So I might say to the deck, okay, if we have a question, I'm just going to shuffle the cards. What is the important thing about change? What is the most important thing about change? Not spare change, financial change, but change work. When we're talking about changing ourselves, what is the most important thing? And I'll draw a card, and it is the Three of Wands. And I'll say to my deck, oh, so the most important thing about change is letting it happen and not being associated with it. So maybe to watch it from distance, to almost be disassociated with it. So, okay, that's interesting to know about change. Thank you, deck, for letting me know. But these ships, I'm assuming that's a change. How can you make sure that the ships get to where they're going? And then I'll draw another card, and I get the Seven of Pentacles. The Seven of Pentacles. So I can assure myself that the ships get to where they're going by having patience, but also I know that this card is our Blight card, and it shows a farmer who has trusted all of his hopes to one crop, and now that's withered and he's left with nothing. So if you set a number of paths going for change, not just one, then actually a bit like Debbie is saying with adaptation. So actually change work, we should try and make a number of changes because not all of them will work out. So how do we go about choosing the sort of changes that we should have? Okay, so now we have the Four of Cups. Oh, okay, so the Four of Cups. So when we're thinking about the changes, we have to be sure of the ones that we're going to plan, maybe have three of them. So I'm going to have three potential changes that I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on my relationship, management issues and my confidence or something like that. So I'm going to have three of them, but wants to have another one maybe, and to realize that the three you've chosen might not be the total important ones, that there might be another one just waiting to happen as well. Oh, that's really interesting. Have you got anything else to tell me about change? No, no, we're back to the beginning. And so that is a way to actually, I think some people call it like interviewing a deck. I've always called it sort of like just talking to the deck, making a story up about what's going on from it. So that is our storytelling example for telling having a discussion with the deck and it telling us a story and telling us about our own story. So I'd like you to have a practice of that, maybe practice your UI switches. So you can say, so you're saying I'm like the man in the Three of Wands, and if I was that man, what should I do? Or you can say, what is he doing? What is he doing in the card? And just play around with those switches and what it does to you as you're looking at the cards and reading them, because you'll be switching between one side of the equation and the other. Phobias are hereditary, passed on from generation. Yes, because they're learned. My phobia about dogs was learnt from my dad, and it took me quite a while to move on a little bit from that. And you sort of end up consolidating your own phobias. It's almost as if you learn to do them better, because the thing with a phobia is that it happens immediately. You don't have to think, oh, here's the thing I'm phobic about. Now, what do I have to do first? First of all, I have to make all of my palms all sweaty. Right, okay, I'm doing that. And the dog or the needle or the edge or the lemon jelly or whatever it might be is getting closer. So now I need to start to breathe more deeply. And then we don't work like that. A phobia happens instantaneously. And that is another clue as to a way of approaching and doing it a little bit, is to actually break it down and slow it down. Making it far more conscious as to the response mechanism is a good way of starting to work with the phobia. So yeah, we definitely, I say definitely, in some cases they are learned from our parents and they are passed on. And I don't know where my dad learned his phobia about dogs, but he certainly learned it at some point. Okay, so we're going to end with our bedtime story. I just wanted to cover storytelling a little bit. I've written it down here, and we've done UI switches, my friend John. No one ever put me down, and lemon jelly. So we've managed to cover the things that I was hoping to just talk about this evening. So maybe that has something to do with our city from Invisible Cities, that I'm going to read as our bedtime story. At Melania, every time you enter the square, you find yourself caught in a dialogue. The braggart soldier and the parasite coming from a door meet the young wastrel and the prostitute, or else the miserly father from his threshold utters his fine warnings to the amorous daughter, and is interrupted by the foolish servant who is taking a note to the procuress. You return to Melania after years, and you find the same dialogue still going on. In the meanwhile, the parasite has died, and so you have the procuress and the miserly father. But the braggart soldier, the amorous daughter, the foolish servant, have taken their places, being replaced in their turn by the hypocrite, the confidant, and the astrologer. Melania's population renews itself. The participants in the dialogues die one by one, And meanwhile, those who will take their places are born, some in one role, some in another. When one changes role or abandons a square for forever or makes his or her first entrance into it, there is a series of changes until all of the roles have become reassigned. But meanwhile, the angry old man goes on replying to the witty maidservant. The usurer never ceases following the disinherited youth. The nurse consoles the stepdaughter, even if none of them keeps the same eyes and voice he had in the previous scene. At times, it may happen that a sole person will simultaneously take on two or more roles: tyrant, benefactor, messenger. Or one role may be doubled, multiplied, assigned to 100, 1,000 inhabitants of Melania. 3,000 for the hypocrite, 30,000 for the sponger, 100,000 king's sons fallen in low estate and awaiting their recognition. As time passes, the roles too are no longer exactly the same as before. Certainly, the action they carry forward through intrigues and surprises lead towards some final denouement, which it continues to approach even when the plot seems to thicken more and more and the obstacles increase. If you look into the square in successive moments, you will hear how from act to act the dialogue changes, even if the lives of Melania's inhabitants are too short for them to realize it. The city of Melania in Calvino's Invisible Cities. Again, perhaps something to do with inheritance and stories and dialogue. Okay, everyone, we've hit our 40-minute mark, which is great. It's roughly the sort of time that I think we can pass whilst keeping some interest and some dynamic to our little meetups here. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. We're going to go back to some good old-fashioned tarot card reading tomorrow and look at binding some of these NLP type ideas into just everyday 3-card readings. And we're going to start to look at that tomorrow. I'm then going to, I'm thinking of moving on to some more Kabbalah and tarot, because that's something I'd really like us to talk about. And then if we go beyond that, obviously we can't ever go beyond it, but if we some of those things in a bit of detail, we'll go on to some Lenormand and general oracle card reading, and also maybe some of the deeper side of divination and initiation and ritual as well. So thanks everyone, it's nice to see all the familiar faces and the names, and I hope you're sort of getting to see each other around our space. Do introduce yourselves to each other in the group if you wish to do so. It'd be very nice to make more connections than just me coming out to you, that everyone introduces, because you're all very interesting people, and it's very much a pleasure to spend this time with you. So thank you for that. Okay, thanks a lot. Take care, everyone. Looking forward to finding out more what's going on for you in the Facebook as well. Okay. Take care and bye for now.